Hello everyone, welcome to today's Partner Enablement session on how to restore customers' repository database into partner's environment and how to test it to reproduce an issue. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Richard Teng. I'm Technical Support Engineer and having worked in Qlik support for 3 years. I mostly focus on Qlik Sense, Qlik View, Qlik Insight Bot, and Qlik Cloud services. About my personal interests, I love playing basketball, traveling, and watching movies with my family. In this session, you will learn how to backup and restore customers' database, how to connect and modify customers' database, and test it if we can replicate the issue or not. In this session, I've created two environments, Qlik Server 1 and Qlik Server 2. Qlik Server 1 will be our customer environment, which I've already installed Qlik since April 2020 version. And Qlik Server 2 will be our partner's environment. Let's start on how to backup customer database. In order to backup the database, open the command prompt. Make sure to run it as administrator. In this scenario, we will not stop the Qlik services, as these tests purpose only to replicate the issue. But if your purpose is to backup, we always recommend that we stop the Qlik services. Now, we proceed to copy the command line to backup the database. And paste it in the command prompt. Please note that the command line is connection to localhost. If the database is a standalone machine, please change the localhost in the command line to machine name where repository database located. Password will be asked. Please enter repository database super user password. Backup file will be located at C drive QSR. We have now successfully backup the database, and now we can restore the backup to partner's environment. After we have successfully backup the database, we will now restore to partner's environment. First, install the same version of Qlik Sense in partner's environment, which I have already installed Qlik since April 2020. After installation of Qlik Sense, we will now proceed to stop all the Qlik Sense services except for repository database service. Now the services has been stopped. Our next step will be to move the backup copy of repository database into C drive QSR. A while ago, we did the backup customer database, which is located at C drive QSR. Customer or client need to provide this .tar file in order for us to restore in our partner's environment. In preparation to restore in partner's environment, I will create a folder on C drive. I will name it as QSR. After that, I will paste the .tar file that customer provided. Then, the next step are to run this command line below. The first command line is to drop the database that we currently have. After dropping the database, the second command is to create a new database template. Then, the last command is to restore the backup database that the customer provided to us. Please note that the name of backup copy of database, you need to change it based on the scenario. We will now proceed to run this command line to our partner's environment. First, open the Windows command prompt and run it as administrator. The first command line is to drop the database. Copy the command line and paste it in the command prompt. It will ask for a password. Please enter your super user password. Database has been dropped. We will now proceed with the second command, which is to create a new database template. Copy the command line and paste it again. It will ask again for a password. Created a new database template. Now, we will now proceed with the last step, which is to restore the database. Copy the command line re-enter the password again. Wait until it's restored. We have now successfully restored the customer's database. After successfully restore the database, our next step is to connect to PostgreSQL to modify some tables in database in order for us to connect to customer's database using our test environment. In this session, I have downloaded and installed pgadmin 4. If you still haven't installed pgadmin, Here's the link in PowerPoint wherein you can download and install in your machine. Please note that it's not necessary to use pgadmin. You can use any other tools to connect. We will now connect to PostgreSQL. Open the pgadmin in Windows. Connect to the new server. In name, just add QSR. And in connection tab, hostname will be localhost. Port will be 4432. Main database should be the same, Postgres. For username and password, username Postgres. And for password, enter the super user password. Then click Save. We are now connected to the database. After connecting to the database, we will now proceed to modify the tables. Navigate QSR, click Database, QSR, Schemas, Public, and search for tables. Under Tables, we need to find Server Node Configuration. Under Server Node Configuration, search for hostname. In hostname, it is Qlik server 1. Replace the old hostname to new hostname, which is Qlik server 2. Click Save, and then forget to save it. The next table to find is the local configs. Since there's no local config and we cannot find the table, we skip it. Some table listed is for old version of QlikSense. The next table to find is the Service Cluster Settings, Shared Persistence Properties. And then we look for root folder. We need to replace the old path to the new path of shell folder, which in my case, it's shared 1. And click Save. Next column, App folder. replace it to shared one. Next, static content root folder. Shared one. Next column it's connected 32 and 64. Since it is blank, so we'll just skip it. The next, archive log root folder. Change it to share one. Save. Make sure that you save it. Next table will be repository service settings. Find column app import folder. Since there's no app import folder, we skip it. Next table, engines service settings. And find document directory. Change it to the shared folder. Shared one. The next table, server node configuration. Temporary file path. In my case, I will not change the path as it is the same path that I have. We are now done modifying the database. We will need to restart all the Qlik services. Restart the repository database. Dispatcher. Repository service. Scheduler. Engine. printing services. Now all Qlik services has been restarted. Now we will test if we can access the QMC. I will be using the domain administrator. If you could see that the administrator doesn't have the right to access the QMC. We have some articles on how to assign the root admin in database in order to give access to QMC. But in this session, we will not cover it. Our purpose here to test customer user. As most of our cases, we need to replicate the issue, especially if for specific user only having the problem. I will show you in this session on how to use the customer user. In order to do it, basically, we just need to create ticket to that particular user, and that user will need to use ticket to log in. And to do that, we need Postman to issue a API call. If you still haven't installed Postman, here's the link in PPT wherein you can install it. In this environment, I've already installed the Postman. I will now open it. And we'll run the following API call. Change the method to post. Then copy the URL provided. Click server2 domain.local is my fkdn. In your scenario, you will need to change it. Then copy the header. In the header, you can change the XRF key, but make sure that the header and URL XRF key is the same. Then copy the body. It should be row and JSON. In this section, the user ID is the customer user, which is in our scenario, Richard. Then we will send the post. It will have a certificate. Just click OK. Then click send. Then go to the header. You will notice that it generates a ticket. This ticket will be used to access the hub or QMC using that user. We will now test to access the hub using the generated ticket. Change the ticket to the generated ticket. As you can see, we are able to access the hub now using the customer user Richard without having the password. We will test if we can access the app. There's an error, the app you specified could not be found. We are not able to access the app because we don't have the binary file of the app. In order to access it, we will be needing to ask customer to provide it. The binary file is located at the network shared drive. Apps. And then the customer needs to provide the binary app, which is in my case this one. After customer providing it, copy the binary file to your Qlik Sense network shared folder, which I already did, and then test it again if you can access the app. Now we are able to access. Then try to access the sheet. Now you can fully access the sheet and replicate the issue of the customer having. Thank you for listening. If you have any question, this is now the time for Q&A. Please submit them using the Q&A panel chatter. So I already got some question here. So I will start reviewing it and answer it one by one shortly. So I have the first question here is can we not stop the Qlik services when we are doing the backup? So thank you for this question. So to answer it, Qlik support always recommend to stop the Qlik services when doing the backup to avoid any corruption of the file when we are doing the backup. Yeah. But in this session that I showed to you, I have not stopped it as this is only for replication issue, which we can back up the database without stopping the services to avoid any service interruption from the customer, especially when it is a production. So the next question is, on the Postgres version, are you using 9.6 or 11? So in my session, I'm using 9.6, which we still support it, but we have old version 9.3, which you need also to change it in the command line that I showed to you. So the next question is how often customer needs to back up their repository database. To answer this, this will depend if the customer have a capability to backup, and if they do, Qlik recommend that they create regular backup to ensure that their Qlik Sense can be recovered in case of event of system failure, or when a node in your deployment needs to be moved or replaced. So these backups are used to restore Qlik Sense site when needed. So it is very important. So not only the repository database, but also the ClickSense certificate and shared persistent folder share that you also need to back up. Also, we always recommend that the customer backup if they will change something in their environment, especially when they doing upgrade in case something happen. We always we can roll back. So I'm reading some questions. So the next question is if the user is having issue with the user created object in server, can Qlik support able to replicate only with the Postgres AMPN QVF? So if it is specific only to the users, it is better to have their uh, their backup, their TAR file, so that we could restore it in our environment and then test if we could replicate it or not. Uh, yes, we can try if we could replicate it in give the if they give the QVF, but we always ask for the repository database to be given so that we could properly check what's going on. So the next question is, does the repository database have a sensitive data? There are situations where organizations do not share a backup for security reason. Yeah, this is a good question. So to answer, no, the repository database doesn't contain sensitive data. So ClickSense repository database is a PostgreSQL database that contains system data and metadata about the apps. So this will get sensitive when customer provided the binary app, which we can access the app and see their app data such as visualization, dimension, and measurement. So in some cases, customer like banks and government are very strict in terms of this. So they refuse to share the binary app, which we needed to understand and needs to find way to further investigate the issue that they are having. So the next question is, while restoring the backup of Postgres, it is mandatory to copy the folder structure from old server to new server. Uh, in restoring the backup, all you need to do is to we always require that the click sense version is the same, so that the structure folder are the same. So so that we will not have an issue when restoring the the customer's database. So make sure that their version and then the one you created version in your partner's environments are the same, so that they could have the same folder structure. So I'm reviewing some questions. One moment. So the next question, if we have issue restoring the customer environment and database, is, is it officially supported, and how can support help us to do this? So for this question, it will depend on the scenario. So if the scenario is they customize something or they play around with the database and then they broke it, Qlik support uh, will not supported in a system. But if the scenario is they just restoring the database because of corrupted, and then they didn't do anything of customize the database, we can help them and assist them to resolve the issue, which we can give them some guidelines or documentation how to back up and restore properly, which it is in our help site and articles and then check if they did it correctly or not. So in case in case their backup is corrupted for some reasons, so that's also we cannot help them. So make sure that the customer needs to back up correctly and then not corrupted. So the next question is the backup Qlik database or client database? In my session, we back up the client database and then we restore it in the partners environment or in our machine in order for us to test if we could replicate the issue that they're having or not. So the next question is, can the team post the answer via email to all attendees? So this session is recorded and then will be post via articles, or it will also send to the attendees. So yeah, it will send. So the next question is, what is the next process when we restore customer database in our environment and if we can replicate the issue? So the answer is, if the partner can replicate the issue, all you need to do is to create a ticket to Qlik support mentioning that the issue can be replicated in your environment using the customer database and provide us the .tar file backup, and Qlik support will test it in our machine if we reproduce the same problem. If yes, we will log a case to R&D, and then R&D will look further and get some fix to the problem. So that's all for this session. So I really appreciate everyone who joined. Hope that you learned something about this session. So thank you and have a lovely day to all.